Imagine waking up one day to discover that you are living in the wrong year. Before you know it, it's not just the wrong year, but also the wrong century. This is no mere imagination. In 1991, one man dug into the past and uncovered a shocking hypothesis that over 300 years in Earth's history never happened. This means that your calendar is lying to you. The year is currently 1728, not 2025, and we are supposed to be in the 18th century, not the 21st. How is this possible? Who came up with the phantom time hypothesis? Is there any truth to this theory? And if there is, what proof is available to back it up? We will find out together in this new episode of Secret Origins. Welcome. There is a ton of uncertainty in the world today. But amid this uncertainty, there is one thing humanity has come to rely on: history. This is because history is known to be unchanging, based on facts, and deeply rooted in inarguable evidence. But what if it isn't? What if nearly 3 centuries of recorded history never actually happened? You heard that right. This is the claim made by German historian Heribert Illig in 1991. Widely known as the phantom time hypothesis, Heribert's theory states that between the years 614 and 911 AD, nothing happened. Matter of fact, he says that everything recorded within this period was totally fabricated. If not fabricated, then the events within 614 and 911 AD were added from other periods and exaggerated to the core. Illig had 2 main culprits in mind: the Church and the Roman Empire. Specifically, Illig believes that the Holy Roman Emperor Otto III connived with Pope Sylvester II and possibly Byzantine Emperor Constantine VII to alter the timeline. If you wonder why, prepare to be amazed. These years were erased so that the rulers could place their reign in the prestigious year 1000 AD. Back in the day, it was a common fact that leaders were obsessed with symbolic timing. Positioning their regime to interweave with 1000 AD would mean that they could be regarded as gods, far above their predecessors or successors. This would command great respect from their subjects, and even mark their name in history as special. This way, Holy Roman Emperor Otto III could rule in the new millennium. Sounds like the perfect conspiracy, right? But Heribert Illig was determined to show that the phantom time hypothesis is not one of those hit-and-run conspiracy theories cooked up by historians for fame and a quick buck. Illig had proof. His first proof of this missing gap in history is the calendar problem. Since time immemorial, different civilizations have figured out ways to keep track of time. Timekeeping is one of the most precise sciences known to man, and this has been passed down through generations. And not once have we looked at the calendar and doubted what year, month, or season it is. However, according to the phantom time hypothesis, our calendar is not as accurate as we give it credit for. Illig says that our current year is lagging by exactly 297 years. This means we might not be living in 2025, but rather somewhere in the 1700s. His biggest proof? The Gregorian calendar reform of 1582. For starters, let's go back in time. Before the widely used modern Gregorian calendar, most of the world used the Julian calendar. As the name suggests, the Julian calendar was introduced by Julius Caesar in 45 BC. The Julian calendar was based on a tropical year, also known as a solar year. This simply means one Earth's orbit around the Sun. With the Julian calendar, a year was 365.25 days long, adding a leap year once every 4 years. However, there was a tiny error in the Julian calendar. The year was shorter than the calendar assumed. Matter of fact, the real length of a year is slightly shorter, 365.2419 days. Looks so minute, right? However, This little error accumulated over centuries, causing the calendar to drift out of sync with the solar year. So, after every 128 years, the calendar loses a full day. At first, the slippage was unnoticeable until the 1500s. During this time, the church was gaining momentum. Usually, the church liked for Easter to land on exactly March 21st every year, as this was the spring equinox. However, in the 1500s, Easter was landing around March 11th. This did not sit well with the Pope at the time, Pope Gregory XIII. In 1582, the church announced the switch of calendars from the Julian calendar to the Gregorian calendar. Now a year would be 365 days, with an extra day added every year, divided by 4, and some other rules to keep things in order. By doing this, the days lost through the Julian calendar every 128 years were now added back to the Gregorian calendar. That is, you closed your eyes to sleep on Thursday, the 4th of October, 1582, and the next morning when you opened them, it was Friday, the 15th of October, 1582. The former was the last day of the Julian calendar, and the latter was the first day of the Gregorian calendar. But there is a problem, one that only Heribert Illig dared to notice. The days added were only 10 days, whereas the errors caused by the inaccuracy of the Julian calendar totaled 13 days. So where did 3 days go? Illig believed that this error made by Pope Gregory when designing the Gregorian calendar was, in fact, no error at all. Rather, it was a ploy to cover up the missing gap in history without anyone having a clue. This was Illig's argument. If the Julian calendar had been running since the time of Julius Caesar in 45 BCE, the shift should have been about 13 days in 1582, not 10 days. This points to one thing. The math doesn't add up. Since the adjustment made by the Pope was only 10 days, Illig rang the bell that the additional 3 days represented 3 centuries lost to time. 10 days only accounted for 1,200 years out of the 1,500 years that have passed since the old calendar. According to Illig, the missing 300 years never happened. They were artificially inserted into our history, making it seem longer than it really is. And since one of the alleged culprits was Pope Sylvester II, Illig suggested that it made sense that Pope Gregory XIII would want to cover up the conspiracy years later to protect the Church's image. Was this a mere mathematical error made by the Pope? Or is Illig's theory about the cover-up a real deal? There was only one way to find out. And Illig was determined to know the truth. So he went digging into history's records. Surely if 3 centuries were fabricated, the events during that period would all seem amiss, right? Right. Illig searched for clues in past timelines. Eventually, he found them in the Middle Ages, more specifically, the earlier part of the Middle Ages, known as the Dark Ages, called out to Illig, and for good reason too. The lack of archaeological evidence within a certain time frame, 614 to 911 AD. If these 297 years truly passed, then it is only right that there is a massive amount of physical evidence. Buildings, tools, art, written records, substantial proof to confirm that people were living and working to advance during that time frame. But according to Illig and other phantom time theorists, this period is strangely empty. When put side by side with other eras, there is a stark difference. It is as though that entire period never existed, just like Illig stated. What exactly is missing? Does this prove that the centuries were purely invented? See for yourself. Illig managed to show that there is a blatant absence of monumental architecture. Throughout history, major civilizations have left behind their footprints. Most times, you see these footprints in the form of pyramids, great temples, castles, and even huge cathedrals. But when you look at 614 to 911 AD, There are no major construction projects compared to before and after that time. Humans are always working, trying hard to make their labor remembered in the sands of time. Surely, there should have been a few monuments to show their existence at the time, right? But there isn't. On the flip side, during the 1st to 5th centuries AD, there were tons of monuments built across Europe, roads, aqueducts, amphitheaters, huge stone cities, you name it. But it looked like everything paused after this period. Illig noticed that the architecture of the year 476 looked extremely similar to that of the year 1000. Is it possible that advancements paused for that long? If compared to now, it would mean that we would still be using our feet as the only means of transportation. Let's dissect the aspect of technical advancements at that time. The Roman Empire brought with them aqueducts and indoor plumbing. The Renaissance period had so much to offer as well, by birthing stars like Da Vinci. But for the missing 300 years, there were no scientific advancements. Isn't it strange? Also, let's not forget that there were plenty of castles before and after the proposed phantom time. And the building styles were so identical, despite being hundreds of years apart. In his search for architectural proof within the supposed phantom time, Illig found a document that stated that over 1,700 monumental structures were erected in the same period that the historian claims did not exist. But before you shake your head, listen closely. The document was a fake. Yes. When the German historian and his team tried to trace the documented architecture, they found out that over 96% were nowhere to be found. Aside from the document, there was no proof that these structures ever existed in that timeline. But this is not all. To further buttress his point, Illig pointed out that even the written records of the Phantom period had huge question marks hanging all over. This is because during the Roman Empire and the High Middle Ages, there were thousands of written documents. Books, scrolls, and chronicles were all in abundance from that time. But between the period of 614 to 911 AD, the reverse was the case. Historians could only find a handful of manuscripts, which were mostly from monasteries. There were no significant writings from kings, nobles, or governments from that time. No doubt this makes the phantom time hypothesis all the more believable. Or else, how do you explain the missing archaeological evidence from that time frame? Like Illig argued, what if the time frame never existed to start with? If it is true what Illig said, and that the events from 614 to 911 AD were completely fabricated, then the roller coaster of lies has just begun. And it peaks with none other than the infamous father of Europe, Charlemagne. Charlemagne was one of the most famous leaders in Europe's history. He was not just the first Holy Roman Emperor, but also a warrior, king, and builder of empires. This ruler was known for unifying the continent in a way that no preceding ruler could, leaving behind tales of legendary victories during every single war he went to. But as impressive as Charlemagne's resume looked, it did not escape the snooping nose of Heribert Illig. The historian dared to drop the biggest bomb of all, that Charlemagne never existed. Wait, what? Yes. Charlemagne's supposed reign was between 768 and 814 AD, a period conveniently placed between the Phantom time. Since there was no substantial architecture, written records, or scientific inventions from the missing period, this seemed like the best cover-up story. Create a figure so glamorized and exalted that no one would question his existence centuries down the line. According to Illig, this was how Charlemagne came to be. Also known as Charles the Great, Emperor Charlemagne had quite a robust history. Besides being the emperor at the time, this man was also an astronomer. Not just that, he was also an agriculturalist and an architect. Hold on. This is not all. During his supposed 46-year reign, he was mostly traveling around the world, fighting and winning wars for an estimated 44 years. Despite being so occupied, Emperor Charlemagne still found time to get involved with the laws of the time. It is said that he invented a jury system and created over 100 new laws. In addition, Charles the Great restructured the education system. As icing on the cake, guess what he also did? He updated scripture. Now, you must be wondering how one man did so much during one lifetime. We wonder how too. But Illig and his supporters say that Charlemagne achieved so much during one lifetime because he was not real to start with, but a mere fictional character who climbed his way to the top through the pen of another. Illig's proposed reasons for why Otto III would create such a character: to create and legitimize the rule of the Ottonians. The Ottonians were a dynasty that ruled the Holy Roman Empire during the 10th and early 11th centuries. Named after its infamous emperors, Otto I, Otto II, and Otto III, the Ottonian dynasty succeeded the Carolingian dynasty, the same one founded by Charlemagne. Illig and supporting theorists suggest that the Ottonians fabricated the existence of Charlemagne to give their own rule a legal base. Think of it as the perfect backstory for a brand new dynasty to break into the Holy Roman Empire. Since they took over from such a highly esteemed Charlemagne-ruled regime, the Ottonians were seen as heroes deserving of the throne. With this thought in mind, Otto III fabricated the Charlemagne character and added his exaggerated features, plastering it into the anchors of history. This motive, combined with the burning desire to rule in the auspicious millennium year of 1000 AD, birthed the absurd rewriting of history. Well, according to Illig. He exposed the fact that most documents about Charlemagne's life were written in monasteries and not by contemporary government officials. Additionally, the Carolingian Renaissance also happened within the missing centuries, raising more suspicion about the convenient timing of such a remarkable event. Let's not forget how glamorized the life of Charlemagne was. Perfect battles and multiple endeavors that looked like they jumped out of a skilled script. Backed with these pieces of evidence, Illig concluded, the years 614 to 911 never happened. This threw the history space into intellectual pandemonium. Many pondered on whether the Pope did make a mistake while enforcing the Gregorian calendar. And even if it was a mistake, how can we explain the strange lack of archaeological evidence from the proposed missing timeline? Is there more to this story than we see? Let's find out together. Do you remember the Julian calendar, the one introduced by Julius Caesar in 45 BC? Yeah, that one. If you recall, this was the foundation for the miscalculation that had Heribert Illig calling out Earth's records, leading to the phantom time hypothesis. Because the accumulated error from the Julian calendar resulted in a lag of 13 days by 1582, whereas the Pope only added 10 to the Gregorian calendar, this is where Illig went voila. However, recent counter-arguments from other historians are saying, not so fast, Illig. Now, Illig argued that from the year when the Julian calendar was enforced to when the Gregorian calendar was adopted, the Julian calendar was strictly followed year after year. But was it really? Many theorists suggest that it most likely wasn't. Before 1582, when the Gregorian calendar came into play, different countries applied leap years inconsistently. This would mean that the calculation made by Illig was incorrect to start with. Other historians proposed that religion and politics might have interfered with the Julian calendar as well. For example, some churches already tried multiple times to realign their Easter dates, even before Pope Gregory XIII decided to change the calendar altogether. This may have resulted in the drift of 10 days instead of 13. So what if there were no missing centuries but merely imperfect timekeeping? Also, Illig's hypothesis did not consider one view, that the Julian calendar was not universal. Let's take, for example, the Islamic world, which follows a lunar calendar. Or do we talk about China, which used an entirely different system based on astronomy? If the Julian calendar made an error that amounted to 13 days, then what about these other records? Illig argued that the Islamic community and even China might have altered their records to fit with the conspiracy done with the Gregorian calendar. But why would rulers all over the world connive to create a conspiracy fusion that big just to ensure that Emperor Otto III ruled in an auspicious year? The thought of it is unbelievable. Another counter stemmed from astronomical records. Although the calendar is a popular way of keeping track of time, other methods exist. Reliable methods like astronomical events. And unlike man-made calendars, the movement of the sun, moon, and planets follow cycles so precise and predictable that we can bank on them to calculate past years. Using records like solar eclipses and comet appearances, some historians managed to combat the phantom time hypothesis. How so? In 418 AD, a solar eclipse was recorded by the Chinese and Romans. This matches perfectly with modern astronomical models, eliminating any room for doubt. In 879, another eclipse was recorded. Both eclipses occurred during the same period that Illig tagged as non-existent. To further their argument, historians highlighted that Halley's comet, which appears every 75 to 76 years, was recorded in both 760 AD and 837 AD. And before you wonder if this was fabricated, think again. They were also recorded by Chinese and Islamic astronomers independent of the European government. This made people question whether Illig's theory concerned the entire world or if it was purely Eurocentric. If you've been following closely, your mind might be asking now, what about the strange lack of archaeological evidence during the proposed phantom time? If the 614 to 911 period did happen, there ought to be archaeological footprints, right? What if we told you that there are? Following Illig's claims of a lack of tangible evidence from that timeline, archaeologists set out to work. And unlike Illig stated, archaeologists have uncovered artifacts from the time. Take, for example, coins from early medieval rulers and even Viking ships buried in Norway, which date far back to the late 700s. So, did Illig miss these details? Or did he not search deeply enough? It is important to note that while counter-historians were searching for artifacts within the phantom time, they noted that not much was truly found. This is because during that time, Europe was undergoing one of its most difficult periods. The fall of Rome in 476 AD. Centuries before this fall, the Roman Empire was the dominant civilization in Europe, taking charge of massive territories, building cities, and maintaining overall infrastructure. But when Rome fell, the government collapsed with no handover. Trade networks had to face an abrupt decline, and the people suffered from a dwindling economy. With such a fate, it was only expected that the focus would shift from technical and scientific advancements to the daily source of food. Suddenly, no one was bothered with erecting monuments, but focused on how to survive. This led to a massive decline in archaeological proof of the period. But this counter is only the tip of the iceberg. Let's move on to the most eerie one of all, Charlemagne. To combat Illig's claim that Charles the Great was a fictional character in the plot by Otto III and Pope Sylvester II, historians brought up undeniable proof that Charlemagne did exist. Firstly, Charlemagne's life was not just restricted to the people he ruled. The Byzantine Empire, also known as the Eastern Roman Empire, knew Charlemagne and kept records of his life alongside that of other European leaders. Another unusual piece of evidence for Charlemagne's existence is an elephant gifted to the ruler by Caliph Harun al-Rashid of Baghdad in 802 AD. French and Islamic records hold this information, showing that Charlemagne was recognized outside of Europe. Lastly, there are coins and other artifacts with the ruler's face on them. This proves that Charlemagne did exist. His life's achievements may have been exaggerated, yes, but there is proof that he was no fiction. This makes us turn to ponder on Illig's theory. Could these pieces of evidence all be a ploy to cover the biggest plot of rewriting time? Who knows? While Heribert Illig's phantom time hypothesis seems to hit the nail on its head, the counter-arguments seem plausible as well. So until there is concrete enough evidence to call out Emperor Otto III and his supposed ally, Pope Sylvester II, the missing gap theory remains a theory, for now. What do you think about the story of the Phantom Time? Do you think that this is truly a ploy? Let us know in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe for more videos like this. Keep your minds open, and until we meet again.